Hey, welcome back, everyone. Today's going to be an exciting discussion as myself and Guillaume have lived and worked in Vietnam as a digital nomad, and then we transitioned to as a long term expat. So, we're going to talk about the pros and cons and all of the good things about living and working in Vietnam and Southeast Asia. Guillaume, how you doing?
Very good, mate. How are you doing?
I'm good. Now, you've been in Southeast Asia maybe 6 years.
Yeah, I think I arrived in Vietnam around 8 years ago. So I've been bouncing around in the region, and I finally settled down in Ho Chi Minh City probably 6, 7 years ago.
All right, so I had lived in Vietnam for about 4 or 5 years, and I'd stayed in different cities too.
Yeah, we met up actually at a networking event gathering digital nomads, right?
That's correct. Speaking of which, when you think of a digital nomad, you think of Southeast Asia, Thailand, maybe Chiang Mai, Bangkok. And so, why Vietnam when what interested you from the beginning?
Yeah, very good question, Vin. So Vietnam, there is a lot of pros, but there is a lot of cons in the sense of if you want to live there long term, it may be harder than in other countries to really set up and have a base, right? Considering the term digital nomad, it's like you're going to really try to find places where you can stay 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year, and then moving around. So benchmarking the region, you have Thailand that now just offer visas that can help you to stay for 6 months, and then you can leave the country and come back. In Vietnam, it won't be the case. You will only be able to stay 3 months. Then you have Malaysia. I think it's going to be also 3 months visa. Cambodia as well. We've been both exploring the region, and each country will have the pros and cons in terms of the lifestyle, the experience, the digital nomad community, things to do. So yeah, pretty that.
So, can you give a quick comparison between Thailand and Vietnam? Maybe some generalizations.
So generally speaking, I think in terms of the food, both will be pretty diverse. Weather is going to be the same. The community, I think there is more expats in general in Thailand. The digital community as well is more diverse in Thailand, and you may have more hubs. You will have in Phuket, you will have in Bangkok, you will have in Chiang Mai, while in Vietnam, it may be only located in Da Nang and in Ho Chi Minh City. Other than that, I feel like both of the country in the lifestyle, the experience, the travel, the nightlife may pretty be the same. What do you think, Vin?
Yeah, I think Thailand's going to offer more to Westerners in terms of entertainment. You can get the super nice malls in Bangkok if you want that experience, the cultural arts, movie theaters to Western standards, as well as grocery stores. And so you can have a high quality of life that you could expect in Europe or America, the amenities, as well as like infrastructure, la metro. Whereas Vietnam is kind of up and coming, less developed, I would say, generally speaking. It's going to be a little bit cheaper. So we're going to have to compare the two. I would say Thailand's ahead in terms of comfort, convenience, and everybody knows about Thailand. Whereas Vietnam is a less known quantity. But there are some pros, as you know. So maybe you can talk about some of the cities in Vietnam that most people are familiar with or go to be a digital nomad.
Yeah, so let's start by the south. So you have the megalopolis of Ho Chi Minh City, formerly called Saigon, and over there, that's where, uh, as a first-time tourist, or if you wanna spend 3 to 6 months, you may consider this city because it's very vibrant, very dynamic in terms of the nightlife, the things to do. It's quite diverse, and then you also have a strong community, either from locals or expats, digital nomads that are also coming there, either long term or short term. So in terms of the scene, the The networking opportunities as well for business, that can be the hub that you can consider. Then going more in the north, you have Da Nang, which is a coastal city, which is also quite interesting on the digital nomad perspective because you have a lot of cafes, co-working spaces, very nice restaurants, and then you are by the beach, so you can easily find uh, short-term apartments either through Airbnb or booking hotels, booking short-term lease such as 3 to 6 months. You can have a nice villa in Hoi An, that's the city very next to Da Nang, and over there you can also have the good side of the digital nomad thing, like taking things more easy, really trying to find a good mix between your life and then the leisure, the lifestyle aspect, which in a big city you may not always be able to fulfill. And then after Da Nang in the north, you have Hanoi, that is the capital city. I feel that in Hanoi, it's still interesting to pass there to have to see the vibe, but people will tend to stay just a couple of weeks. I don't know so many digital nomads that are really staying in Hanoi for the long term. You may have other options just because over there it's the capital city, so it may not be that attractive for people to settle there as a digital nomad.
All right. So the probably most important question people want to know is the budget, the cost of living. Can you maybe give us a general idea of housing, an apartment, how much you would spend, how much you spend in food and entertainment and transportation between the two countries if you've had experience?
I can take the example of Ho Chi Minh City. I think if you're on budget, you can find share apartments that you can pay, for instance, uh, 400 US dollar per month until 600 US dollar per month. You can just share a room. Then if you have a higher budget, you can be renting a two-bedroom apartment for probably 700, 800 US dollar per month, which you can have all the amenities. I'm talking about condos, so you will be having a modern swimming pool, gym, um, and amenities around. So convenience stores, it may be well located. And then if you want to go to the high end, then for 1.5 to 2,000 US dollar, you can have super nice apartment or even try to get a villa in some part of the city. Uh, Often expats or digital men will consider living in Taoyuan, which is the place where you have all the convenience. You have nice cafes, nice bars, nice condos. So on the digital nomad scene, you have the community that stick there. You can be doing networking events, going to your co-working space there, and then you can stay in some type of bubble, right? You just need to rent a motorbike and you can easily commute from one place to one place. So that probably be the budget on the renting apartment. Then on the food, I think it really depends if you just stick to Vietnamese food or if you want to also have, like international food, Western food from on the lower range. And if you just want to go to the first banh mi on the street, we can call it. It can be $1 or $2 meal. But if you go to a small family restaurant, it can be $5 for a meal, and then you can have a pizza for also $10 or a burger for $10. And then if you go to a nice restaurant, you can have a budget of $15, $20. So the scope is large between if you really eat Vietnamese on the street or if you go to a nice restaurant. What was your experience been about that, about the living aspects and then the food?
Yeah, I think you're right. In Southeast Asia, the food is very, very cheap, very, very affordable, and plentiful. Like you mentioned, you can go on almost every city block in the morning, have a banh mi sandwich, a coffee, for a total of maybe $2 or $3. And it's something that's quite prevalent in Asian cultures is eating in the morning. Whereas in the West, we just have a donut, a bagel, and a coffee at home or Starbucks. It's not very elaborate, but you can have your pho beef noodle soup, or you can have tons different types of noodles in the morning. Your rice plates. Vietnamese, they wake up pretty early, and for Thailand, very similar. The street food is very famous, very cheap, and it's everywhere. So maybe just $2 or $3 you can get a bite to eat is very very common. So I would say that's a big pro for living in Thailand or Vietnam compared to the West. Maybe you want to talk about co-working spaces. That's probably the second question people have is it plentiful? What does it look like? What is the cost?
So yeah, great question, Vin. So for Ho Chi Minh City, there are a few names that I can mention. You have the Hive, that is a co-working space located in District 2. They have other branches in District 1. You have another nice one that opened probably 3, 4 years ago that is called The Santry. It's located in the heart of District 1 in Letanton, so in the Japanese district, and it's super nice in terms of the amenities there. They run often events. So just even going there for a networking event, you will see that the amenities are pretty branded new. So that's another name that I can share. And then you have the well-known Dreamplex that has been here for 10 years. They have also a few locations, one in Dien Bien Phu, so in District 2, and then one in Tao Dien. And it's also a pretty well furnished co-working space with a lot of tech startup and then solo entrepreneurs. So it's a great place to meet and then to gather with the people that are here for a couple of weeks or who are really setting up here, and then they have either the team here and they are doing business with overseas. So that's some of the names you can consider if you are staying in Ho Chi Minh City for a couple of time.
And you might know what the current prices are, but I recall paying about 75 US dollars per month for access to a co-working space. Um, I'm sure the prices might have gone up last few years, but that I recall paying something about that.
Yeah, I think that's the range. If you are looking for what they call the soft desk, so basically you're gonna just put your laptop anywhere in the co-working. It can be around, yeah, I would say 1.5 to 2 million per month, which is around $70. And then if you really want to have your dedicated desk where you can leave your stuff, then probably it's gonna be a bit higher. And then if you plan to build a team, then you can have also very small rooms. It can start from maybe 5 meters square, and then from this, I guess you can pay maybe 5 million to 6 million Vietnam dong, which is around $250. So you can also build up a team in such co-working space. I think that's a very good way to start. And then after that, you can be looking for other buildings that will be more suitable for long term, and you can also cut down the price because in such co-working, it's all included, right? But sometimes, of course, it's going to be a bit more expensive if you build a team that grow. Then it's going to add up cost quite fast.
All right, and then how about transportation? What's the best way to get around Thailand and Vietnam in general?
So I think the best way if you plan to stay here for at least a month is just to rent a motorbike. If you really plan to settle in a place for, I don't know, at least 6 months, then just buy a motorbike. Either Thailand or Vietnam is going to be the same. And then for just short-term visit, or if you just necessarily always want to rely on having your own motorbike or renting it, you can just use apps like you have Grab here in the region. It's very easy. You can set it up with any phone number, and then you can book a Grab, and then you can pay by cash. This is the same in Thailand, and then you can also access to the normal network of cars. So that's pretty smooth and pretty straightforward.
All right, and then I think most people also want to know about the visa issues, how it's different from each country. I recall in Thailand, I believe you can get up to a 6 month visa for Americans. You have to apply for that. I think generally you get 30 days automatically, but then you have to apply for a 6 months visa, and then I think you have to renew every year and then leave the country once a year. Whereas in Vietnam, you probably know better than me now, they had some changes over COVID. Maybe you can give us an update.
Yes, so that's the case for Thailand. I think now they just implemented a visa that is pretty straightforward to get, that can grant you a 6 months of period, and then you just need to leave the country, and then you can come back with a new visa. So that's pretty smooth. While in Vietnam, right now, it's a 3 months visa that you need to roll. So pre-COVID, it was quite easy to get 6 months visa, but now the rule are 3 months. So you need to get an e-visa before you land. Then you have a 3 months period. Then after that, you need to leave the country, wait for a couple of days outside of Vietnam, and then reapply for a new 3 month visa. That's the rule for digital nomads. There is not yet a longer term visa for people who want to stay mid-term. And then if you really want to settle in the country, then you really need to consider other options, such as getting a work permit from a local company, or setting up your own company. If you have a planning to building up a team, growing a business, then it can also be options that you can consider.
So you and I started as digital nomads. We came and go um, from both countries. We came and went from both countries, in and out, staying short term in Thailand, short term in Vietnam, going to other countries. And then after a while, we transitioned to maybe longer term expats. Maybe you can talk about your experience, the pros and cons of doing that.
Yes, so Vin, I think I would have bounced around probably 1 year and a half in Asia before deciding to settle in Vietnam. Some of the reasons were just because when you keep moving around, at one point you want to have a place where you feel home. And in my case, I feel that in Ho Chi Minh City, the opportunities there, and then the scene, the people, the life was fitting with what I was expecting and what I wanted at the moment. So I transitioned smoothly to renting an apartment for 6 months. It turned to be 1 year, and then after you get a subscription to the gym, then after you get the girlfriend, etc. So finally you will be more rooted into a country. So that's the transition that I took. And then after that, I also realized that there were some opportunities in the country. And that's something sometimes you cannot see as a digital nomad. You will keep bouncing around and being on a short-term hotel, e-visas, that's good for the beginning. But if you want to do a business that can link you to a certain country by really living there for a longer period, you start to really know some key people in your city, and then discovering potentially opportunities that can help your current business and what you are doing at the moment.
All right, before we go, can you give me two pros and two cons living, working, and traveling in Southeast Asia compared to Europe or France, where you're originally from? And then I'll tell you mine.
So very good question, Vin, and I think that's something that not everyone would see when they live a certain time in Asia. In Asia, I feel, especially in Vietnam, in Thailand, in Cambodia, it can be the same. There is a lack, so I'm going to start by the cons. There is a lack of culture, in a sense of the culture we know from our country. If you want to go to museums, to theater, you feel a type of disconnection. In France, I used to go a lot to theaters. When I was going to specific cities, I was learning about the historical aspect. And this history is very deep in a country like France, or even in some part of Europe. While when you come to places like Vietnam, okay, you have the story of the Vietnam War, but beside that, there is not a lot of new history to discover. And on the cultural aspect is the same. You can go to the cinema, you do have a bit of people doing theater, but to be honest, the community is very small, and then this learning about that is not at the level of what we can find, for instance, in Paris. So that could be the first cons. Then the other challenges that you have in big cities, like in Ho Chi Minh City, in Bangkok, for instance, that's the traffic, the pollution, the fact that the city is always moving. So on the first impression, that's something that can be new and then exciting. I did feel that, and I really like when I travel overseas, when I come back, that the first thing that I appreciate again, that that chaos. But for the long run, it's also something that can be heavy to carry on. Talking about the pros, I think in Asia in general it's quite easy to commute for a big hub like Bangkok or Saigon. You can go to probably 15 countries with a direct flight. And if you book your flight ticket in advance, you can pay $150, 200 US dollar, and you can easily access to a lot of very nice places in the region. While in Europe, you will be sticking to Europe. You'll be visiting different countries, but you will stay mostly in Europe with this budget. And then if you plan, for instance, 300, 400 US dollar to travel for a couple of days, cost-wise, you will do way more things in Asia that you can do in Europe. And then another pros I think is just the weather. In Europe, you may only be able to do that for probably 6 months, and then you will have 6 heavy months of rain, bad weather. And then if you go to Eastern Europe, it's going to be the same. While in Asia, every day you have a strong sun, hot weather, so you can commute more easily, do things outside, work, and at the same time visit. I feel it's easier to do it in Asia than in Europe. What about you, Vin?
For me, the two pros I would say is the lifestyle slash nightlife in Asia. As you know, there's always something going on, food and drink, bars, events. There's a real nightlife in Asia, and you can eat and drink almost every night of the week. It's very common. Whereas in America, we really don't have that culture. One, it's expensive. Two, everyone's busy, and it's just not part of the culture. Like, for example, me and my friends might be going to the bar tonight, maybe four of us, but that's the last time we did that was 6 months ago, or almost a year ago. We rarely go out. But in Vietnam, it was always grabbing a drink uh, with groups of friends, and then having the coffee culture in the morning. So I think those would be the pros. I think the cons is it's not as organized. It's not orderly as America. We have the rule of law. Maybe I'm more familiar with America because I grew up here. The language. It's easy just to go to the courthouse, to go downtown, get a permit, paperwork. Whereas in Vietnam, it'd be more chaotic, and it's not all rules and regulations. And so I'm more familiar with aspect as well as books and data and information. In America, I'm very familiar of going to the library, searching things, finding things out. Whereas I don't recall. I think there are some bookstores in Ho Chi Minh City, but not necessarily like public libraries where I can find information. So there's always pros and cons to every country, every city. So those are some things that you have to weigh.
Yeah, definitely agree with you, Vin.
All right, Guillaume, thanks for your perspective. I really appreciate it. And I'll leave your links below. It's Guillaume Rodan of MoveToAsia.com. Thanks, Guillaume.
Thanks, mate. It was a pleasure to discuss this topic with you.